Well, the 34th took a good share of that, as far as we ever got that time, as the first of some 4 attacks on that line at Casino. Yeah, we were laying under this canopy of this previously destroyed bridge, wooden slab bridge, and it was pretty well protected under that. They were shelling us heavily after the tank would bring in those sections of bridge. And after the 3rd section, they worked us over pretty good, but then suddenly they stopped. And the lieutenant, who was fairly new to us at that time, he just had joined us a short time before, asked if we should go, and I said, no, we better wait. It didn't sound right. And because they had the sequence, we had 3 sections come in, and about the time we would have brought the 4th in, they really lowered the boom on us. But as I said, we were well protected, and but after that, well, it was deathly quiet. We got out of there. So we pulled back then and went up to the Anzio beachhead. Now, they'd already had established the beachhead a couple of months before, a month before that, and had the heavy fighting had gone on then, as the Germans tried to drive them off. And while they talk about they should have dashed off to Rome upon landing, they only had 2 divisions with a 3rd on the way. They never would have gotten there probably, but would have cut off in Rome without supplies or anything. So I think it was the smartest thing to do, stay there and establish that beachhead, because within a week the Germans had 8 divisions poised against us, and they really chewed up the troops that were there. But as I say, we were still down at Casino at that point.
And you had a close shave in Anzio.
Yeah, well, we'd been there about a month and getting ready for the breakout, which was going to be about late May, and the tent hospitals. Well, the beachhead is about 8 miles deep, and so the artillery range would reach clear across the beachhead. And the tent hospitals were under shell fire a good deal of the time, so I had this appendicitis attack. And the day before the breakout, which was pretty shrewd of me, if I'd been able to time it, I could have done better. Went back and had my appendix out, and the ward boy came in to shave me, and he had this dual 2-edged razor blade and a pair of forceps. But he was shell shocked, and he was jumpy. And every time they were shelling that night in the harbor, and every time a shell go over, he'd jump and jerk that razor blade, and eventually he got down to where it was kind of crucial, as he kept shaving from the outside in, and he'd bang, whoop, and then he'd shave a little, bang, and he'd jump again. But it was a close call, I thought.
Close shave.
No Purple Heart on that deal. Well, after they took me back, and they convalesced a while and went through the replacement depot. I rejoined the company then. By that time, I was a 1st sergeant, by the way. I hadn't mentioned that before. I'd been staff sergeant all through Africa.
So you started out as a private in 1939 in the National Guard?
Yeah.
And you've been all the way to 1st sergeant?
Yeah, I made buck sergeant in Louisiana, made staff sergeant in Ireland, and then on the Anzio beachhead, our 1st sergeant went home, and I guess he had some exhaustion or something. So I took over a 1st sergeant job for only about 2 or 3 weeks. Then appendicitis broke up, got me out of there, and I rejoined the company up north of Rome then. They'd gone through Rome in the meantime up towards Florence. They were in rest camp up there, and I joined them. And again, still 1st sergeant, and about a week after I joined them, they come around and offered me a lieutenant commission, a 2nd lieutenant, which I knew was a much more dangerous job than 1st sergeant, but I thought I should take it. Well, I could date nurses for one thing, lieutenant. But then I got a good break then. I got a 3-month filled in for our adjutant back at Division Rear for 3 months, which was a great. But went back and rejoined B Company then in about first of the year, 1945 it would have been. And at that time we were strung out up in the mountains, just holding position really up in the northern Apennines there north of Florence. And the snow was fairly heavy, and they just were on hold at that time. It didn't break. In the spring we broke out along would have been about the 1st of May, we broke out in the Po Valley. And it was kind of fun at that point. The Germans were trying to get back across the Po Valley, back out of the mountains into Brenner Pass, and we cut north fast and got across the Po and got troops up towards the pass and blocked that. And then our division was set up along the road from Bologna up towards Milan, along the south side of the river, and we were just intercepting German troops as they come back and capturing them. And we pulled a big loop run, went clear up north of Milan, and trapped the troops, the Germans that are over on the Italian-French border. And at that point, I was come up for rotation. So the day the war was over in Italy, I came home and flew home by Well, they flew us back to Naples in a regular transport plane on some barracks bags, but then they brought in I signed up to come home by plane, which was a mistake. I just found out later because the people that signed up to go by ship beat us home by about a month because they couldn't didn't have any planes for us. So they took some B-17s and B-24s when the war was over and made took out the bomb bays and the bomb racks and made benches in there so we could sit on those. And so we took off for Casablanca in a B-17, and I was the only officer in the group, so they let me sit up in the jump seat behind the pilot. And the co-pilot was sleepy, so he wanted to sit in the jump seat, so I sit in the co-pilot's seat then across most of North Africa. And I saw a plane coming in from the side. I looked over at the pilot. He was dozing off too. He had an automatic pilot. But I looked at this plane. Well, it's coming. It looked like it was going to miss us by maybe a quarter, half a mile. Well, I didn't realize that at 300 miles an hour things happen pretty fast. And he went by us. He wasn't that far away, but it did wake up the pilot anyway. So we got to Casablanca, and they didn't know we were coming. So there was no planes for us as far as the combat planes would go. They were in the zone of interior. So we sat in a tent outside of Casablanca for about a week. They got a nice pilot, a regular transport plane that got us. Went out to Dakar. Then he hopped across the Atlantic into natal Brazil because they could hop across that without refueling or any trouble. You couldn't fly direct at that time. And took off natal Brazil, went out the next morning, and the plane baggage truck backed into the plane, smashed in the side. So we had to set for another 3 or 4 days till I got another plane. We took off from Natal, and about over the Amazon River, the one engine cocked out, so we landed at Balaam with our 3 engines. Had to get an engine from Miami to put that in, so it took me about a month to fly home. Then we flew on into Miami and took a train up to Fort Snelling and back to home for a 30-day furlough. The first time I've been home in 4 years then. And had to report back to Fort Sam Houston for, I don't know why, just a physical, I guess. And then back home again for 30 days and back to Fort Belvoir, Virginia, and got discharged from there as a first lieutenant. And that was the end of the war, and I didn't rejoin. I stayed out of the war after that. So that's really my career.
You went back to college.
Yeah.
The war broke up your college.
I went right back to the same courses in 5-year interval, and I was concerned about grades, so I studied hard and got straight A's till I caught on. Didn't have to study that hard. And I met Louise, my wife Louise, who was also from South Dakota, from Draper. And we courted a while. We were married the next summer then, and now I have had 4 kids over the years, and got it after I went on graduate school at Purdue after I got my master's at Brookings, and spent a couple of years at Purdue and worked for American Maize, a cornstarch company in Hammond, for 32 years. Retired in 1982. Been retired ever since, and traveling and enjoying life very much.
Did a couple of interesting consulting assignments in Korea.
Yeah, when I was retired, I signed up with the International Executive Service Corps, which would pay expenses for the consultant and his wife or her husband to a foreign country, a developing country, and work as a consultant in an industry there, a factory. And I worked with so we spent 3 months in Korea and 3 months in India, and I did a couple other consulting jobs or just short-term jobs in Malaysia and in Argentina. But then I got out of that and have been playing bridge and golf ever since. And I guess that completes the story.